I like a hosting moment, but not too many people because I like to focus. I like to have like 2 people, maybe 3 is like almost too much. Like I got to lock in with the conversation.
Yes.
And also when you have too many people, like what happens when it's time to go? Like how do you navigate that?
Well, Lena Waithe, welcome to One Nightstand.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
We're very thrilled to have you, and you've chosen 4 great books to talk about today. But tell me, have you always been a big reader?
Yeah, you know, when I was young, it's something that I really enjoyed. And I think as I got older, when I cared about a subject or there was a particular person that I was interested in, I wanted to read about them. And I think maybe that's me. I don't know if that's me being a kid of the 90s where the internet wasn't as prevalent. It definitely happened as I was getting older, but it wasn't something that was a go-to source for things. It was still new.
Yeah.
So books were the way to learn about anything. And I would go to the library, whether it be my local one or the one in my school. And it was a great way for me to get information and to find out about things I was interested in.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
We had a lot of encyclopedias at home that I would look through, and I actually looked in one of them recently when I was back because my parents still had it, and it's fascinating because a lot of them were historical, looking at how the history they write has changed.
Absolutely.
Especially because a lot of the stuff that was talking about like Britain and the Empire, and I was like, they wouldn't get away with writing that now. Ooh, like in that kind of way from like those like 80s, early 90s books.
That's true. You have to update the history books.
You got to update the history books.
Yeah.
Have you ever been much into fiction or nonfiction?
I think when I was younger, I was really into fiction. And then as I got older, I really kind of got into memoirs and, and depending on the subject, if it's not too, because sometimes when you think about nonfiction, you do think of history books, you think about that kind of stuff. But I really do love a great memoir. And even though, This Is Your Mother is a memoir about, her experience with her mother. But I think I like hearing about someone's life in the first person.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's something so moving about it. And especially I got into listening to them that way as well, which is fun.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with This Is Your Mother by Erika J. Simpson, which is an incredible book. I flew through it.
Me too.
Tell me what you love about that book.
I think I love the way she tells a story. It's not it's weird because I don't want to say it's not a typical memoir, but one, it is focused on her relationship with her mother, obviously based on the title. But I think what she does is she paints a very accurate photo of someone from her perspective, of course, but it's one that isn't afraid to speak to her mother's flaws, but yet understand that that's what makes her mother who her mother was. Her mother's no longer earthside, and I think that was very interesting. But not saying it in a way that's bad. It's even though someone could perceive it that way, but what she's saying is, this is my mother, this was my experience, and because of that, I am who I am. And so even though it's very much a story about her relationship with her mother and about her mother, what it's saying is who you come from has a lot to say about who you ultimately become. And I think that was something that I really enjoyed. And also there are letters and sort of ways in which she kind of tells you things, and I just found that to be really fascinating and really personal, and I enjoyed that form of storytelling. Yeah,
it's incredible, and she really allows her mom to be a real 360-degree character, not just like her mother in that way. Right. And I love those rules of Sally May.
I know exactly the rules, and she sort of says her mom sort of has this sort of rule book, if you will, and ways to survive life or to get through things, and they were hustlers. It wasn't easy, and we live in a capitalist society, and if you don't have capital, then you have to find new ways to survive. And this happens to be a book about a Black young woman and her sister and her mom and things like that, but it is a very universal story. Even if you don't have a strained relationship with your mother, even if you don't happen to be a Black woman walking through the world, I think what's great about books or art of any kind is that you see yourself in people that you might not ever meet.
Totally. There's something just so evergreen about the when she's writing about the grief, that she's kind of grieving for a lot of the book, even even until the end, and that is so evergreen that everyone will relate to.
Exactly.
It's funny you say that about the how sort of generous she is to her mom in that way, because I think in other hands I could imagine this story being like, and then she put me through this, or then she put me through that, not in like a horrible way, but just in a sort of like, it wasn't an easy childhood at all.
Not at all, no.
But she has such sort of compassion.
Exactly. And you don't know if that comes from the fact that her mother is now deceased, and she can look back at her life with her mom and the times that she wasn't with her mom and who she became when she was away from her mother. I think that sometimes can help you define who you are when you step away from the vessel. And I think I just really related to some of the ways in which she tried to make sense of her mother. And that really is sort of a child's job.
Yes.
In a way. Yeah. Because once you make sense of the parent, then you can kind of make some sort of sense of why you are who you are.
Totally.
And I think the book is very much a meditation on that. And yeah, I was so moved and blown away. I was telling you earlier that Jeremy O'Harris shared the book with me because I think they're doing something with it. I don't want to speak out of school, but maybe I'm speaking into existence. They're trying to do, I don't know if it's a series or turn it into something scripted. He really was on me about it, about taking a look at it, and I read it and I posted about it and I messaged Erika because I think it's interesting. Oftentimes books are called brave or noble or courageous, but the word I would really describe the book is human.
Yeah, I agree. It's also really a book. I'm one of three girls, and it's about sisterhood as well, and like the relationship between Erika and her sister, and the different ways that they respond to their childhood. And we had Issa Rae was on recently.
I love Issa.
She's the best, and she recommended one of Angela Fournoy's books, The Wilderness, which is just out now, and that has so many things about sisters. And that book has a character who, her and her sister have both like responded very differently to their childhood, and they're sort of like struggling to come together again. And I thought this book captured the way that, I mean, they are like forever in each other's corner, but you know, you can take different routes. Right.
And I'm one of two girls.
Are you?
Yeah. So I obviously I related to that. And it's so true. You know, you can have two kids who grew up in the same house who become very different people, have very different experiences. And I think that's just sort of the way it is.
Totally.
Because everybody's different.
Exactly.
And receives things differently.
I know. And it's funny because when you think about our like tendency to sort of prescribe now who someone's going to be to the coordinates of where they started off, it's like I look at me and my sisters, or say you and your sister, and it's like, well, we all had the same starting point, but have ended up very different places.
I mean, and someone could argue, do you have the same starting point because your parents are different people when they have
so true.
Each child?
Yes, that's so true.
And people are always shifting and changing and evolving. And so people often say, I'm the youngest of two, but let's say the eldest child has a different set of parents than the youngest child for whatever reasons. Because sometimes by the time they get to the youngest kid, maybe the parents have amassed more wealth, or they're more understanding, or they aren't as micromanagey. And so therefore the youngest is going to be different from the eldest, just because of how the parents had evolved by that point.
Yeah. Is your sister in Hollywood as well? Or?
No. Couldn't be further from it.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my family's the same. None of them do anything remotely similar, but the birth order thing is so true.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's fascinating. And, you know, I thought it was a really beautiful invocation of Sally's faith as well. Like her faith is such a like resource for her. And,
absolutely.
And I mean, I thought, did you relate to that at all when you were reading?
Well, it's interesting because I always say I come from a family of lazy Christians, and that they can't quote the Bible to save their lives, and they couldn't throw a Bible at me when I came out because there wasn't one around. But we went to church, you know, and they were faithful members of a particular church, Christ Universal Temple. Our pastor happened to be a Black woman, which was very rare at that time, and very much a trailblazer in her own right, Reverend Johnny Coleman. But it wasn't something that was a source, I think, for my mom, like God, Bible, religion. I think that was very specific to Erika's mother. And I know there are people that have that experience. It wasn't mine. And I'm kind of grateful for that. I think because sometimes when the Bible and God is the end all be all, oftentimes there's not a lot of shades of gray or sort of nuance. And I think for me, especially in my profession, I have to always see it from a 360 point of view. no matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if you're just very black and white, this is the word, this is what it is, you can become very stringent. And there's a little bit too much certainty there. And I love the quote in Conclave where they say there's no progress when there is certainty.
Yeah, that's so true.
He was like, even Jesus wasn't sure. He said, why hast thou forsaken me?
Yes. My parents met at church. And so we went a lot growing up, but I think it was more like cultural than maybe like faith-based, really. I don't know, but it's still
like that,
interesting, because it formed such a big part of my childhood, even so, I suppose. But it's interesting how you sort of grow up and then have your own relationship with all these things.
Yeah, that's true.
And, I thought this book has such a beautiful kind of, the present tense element feels so you really feel like you're in it with her, right?
That's what I think I like the most about it. Again, sort of a different form of storytelling.
Yeah.
The sort of very urgency, the right now, even though we're aware that this is she's an adult now, she's talking about her childhood, but you do feel like you're in the car, that you're having the experience, that you're, running away from the store before they can look at the credit card or the check. It just feels very urgent. And I think that's how literature should feel. Even if you're telling a story from your past, it should feel as if we're right now in the thick of it with you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I like so much about it.
Totally. It felt so immediate.
Yeah.
And
it felt very present.
And you sort of felt had these reactions, even the scene where she goes off to university and she's got this scholarship and she's trying to be an actress. And then there's that really horrible security guard that makes that really flippant comment to her about about there not being many people like her around here kind of thing.
Right.
And I just wanted to
I know. And also that you probably won't stick around.
Yeah.
You probably won't make it. You probably won't survive. But that's the world. And we don't know what his position is or why he feels that way, but he's also telling the truth in a way.
Yeah.
And now in terms of what he thinks will happen to her, there is his projection.
Yeah.
It's never personal. No. It's always a projection of how that person feels about themselves.
Yeah. Where that's a true director's perspective or something there, where you're this person's thinking this and they're motivated by that, this person. Yeah. Whereas I was in it with her and I was I can't believe it.
Damn it. That's not cool, man.
Yeah.
But that's what the world is.
Yeah, you're right. Well, your second book, Think You'll Be Happy by Nicole Avant, is another incredible book about a mother, sort of tribute
very
to
different
her.
Type
very
of mother.
different. Yeah. Tell me about your love of that book.
There's lists that go around. I'm very grateful to receive books from people and to say, hey, I hope you get a chance to read it. And Nicole Avant is someone I've gotten a chance to meet and be around a little bit. And I know who her parents are. Yeah. I know her. I think I kind of know her story, but you don't really know someone's story until they write it down and share things with you. And so, in reading the book about her mother, who she lost tragically. It wasn't what I was expecting. No. It's probably one of the most optimistic, just joyful and light and love. There's so much of that in the book. And I reached out to Nicole as well after reading it and just really told her how grateful I was to her for writing the book and being able to, I still don't really know how she was able to do that and tell us her story, and in the same time really honor her mother and the things that her mother taught her and left her with. And her mother has left behind such a beautiful legacy, which is really the way in which she reared her children and showed up in the world, not just for her family, but for her community.
Totally.
And I think that's something that I value that. And I was grateful to be learning about this woman who I'd seen images of, and I was aware of who she was, but I'm grateful to Nicole for telling us who she was as a human being.
Totally. And being willing to go there, because that is losing a parent is never easy, but losing it in those circumstances is particularly, the shock and the sort of process, I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, same. And I lost my dad suddenly when I was a teenager, but I didn't know the circumstances around what happened until last year. And the crazy thing is I learned later that he was killed tragically. And I didn't find that out until after reading Nicole's book. But there's something really interesting about that experience, losing a parent, also at the hands of someone else. And so then thinking about that and sort of trying to process a lot of things. And also my process was a little delayed because I found that out later. But just her grace and is something that I don't know if she just inherited it or it was taught, obviously it was taught to her to have grace for people and to treat everyone with kindness and respect. And I think that is something that it's really nice to see in print and to see how her mother really, that's what she gave to her children, really was a way of going about life. And it is interesting follow up to This Is Your Mother, because your parents are the ones that give you the rule book.
Yeah.
And you can either follow it, you can take what works for you and leave the rest, or you can deviate completely. And I think what Nicole is speaking about is really wanting to live up to the bar that her mother set, and it was pretty high.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about your loss of your father finding that out. I mean, thank
you. But I also think that also I was a teenager, so I could understand why they might have withheld that information. But I think that as you get older and you hear about other people's stories, and again, it's just a reminder, books remind us how much we all have in common.
Oh, totally.
Even things that you might not want to have in common with anyone. Yeah. But when you realize that you're not alone, and it just makes us all feel more connected.
Oh, for sure. I also thought Nicole was so bravely honest about some of her own, like what she terms as like mistakes or things, like the conversation with Ted when
she's in the car.
Yeah, when she talks about him telling her that his mother has passed, and she's like, "Oh, well, I hope the funeral's not next week," and she's talking about how she regrets that, and how I wrote this one quote down. She was like, "Love is being the very worst version of yourself and knowing that the person who loves you will continue to love you."
Oh yeah. Really stunning. And I couldn't agree more, and I also value that her sharing these moments of, again, humanity.
Exactly.
She's a person. And I think because of how accomplished she is and because of the family that she comes from, I think there's an expectation that she doesn't get anything wrong or she doesn't say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And what it does is she humanizes herself. And for Nicole Avant is someone to aspire to look up to, not unlike her parents. And what she's saying is that we too get it wrong and we too fumble. And obviously I can relate to that as well. Everybody can.
Everyone.
But I think I can really see myself in that when you are put on a pedestal, people believe that you are better at being a person than everybody else.
That's hard. Like, as in, because you mean if you like are seen as being like a highly skilled artist or something, they want to like sort of hold you to account in other ways too. Yeah,
I think people want to think that people they look up to or aspire to be are better at everything, not just whatever it is that they're good at, but they want to believe that you're a really great person because that helps them sleep at night. Yeah. But I think that people that are really good at something, there's no rule that says because they're really good at one thing means that they're really good at being a person.
Yeah. That's an extraordinary pressure to carry as well.
Absolutely. Like. And it's one that you can either carry or put down.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that anyone who is a public figure not carry other people's expectations because it's too big of a burden to bear.
Did it take you a while to realize that when you went into the public eye? Or
it's interesting because I never thought I would be a public person. Yeah. That wasn't something I set out to be. When that happened, I think also because I'm a person who is people might deem to be marginalized because I'm a Black person, I'm a woman, and I'm queer. And so in many ways, I'm seen as a person that should not be successful because I'm sort of, when it comes to the caste system, there's a place I'm supposed to be and stay and where I'm supposed to live. And so when you defy that is something to be, people deem it to be admirable, and to go against society's rules and still be successful, or what society deems someone to be successful.
Yeah.
And so because of that, there's this wondering of, oh, you you must have it all figured out. You must be great at writing, great at love, great at, like I say, being a person. And the truth is that I'm still just a person that happens to do something that the public engages in. And I think that is also, I think it's societal. I think we are indoctrinated to believe that someone who, has amassed wealth or fame or is someone that we look to, there's this idea that they should be morally sound. And I don't think that morality and society's idea of success go hand in hand.
No. That's so interesting. Yeah. And it's sort of, I feel like in order to make good art, you have to be like a real human, right? With human flaws and human like ideas and human like feelings. And it's like if you sanded all that away to become some sort of like perfect moral automaton, you're not then able to make the art that,
But it's also an odd thing that we have this expectation of people who are sort of these gifted artists to be normal people. And some people can be. Like you look at someone like Tom Hanks. He's an everyman. Who also happens to be a movie star and a like 2-time Oscar winner. Got it. But then there's someone else like, Nicolas Cage, who is not an everyman. He's a very unique guy and has a very specific cadence and a way of being. And I don't think his life looks anything like Tom Hanks. But they're both 2 movie stars that are both necessary, and the way they walk through the world is their choice. But I think there's this desire for people that do extraordinary things to go home to a spouse and kids and have dinner and tuck their kids into bed and say their prayers before they go to sleep and have breakfast in the morning like everybody else because people want to feel like those folks are just like us.
Totally.
They lived exactly the way that we do. And it's just not necessarily like, it's, I don't know. But even if you think about the Osbournes, what was interesting about that was that it was this wild rock star living in such domesticity that people were kind of like, what? Ozzy Osbourne's just like yelling for his kids and like in the bed with his wife and just eating dinner and like shuffling around his home. Like it kind of was this, obviously it was a big moment in culture, but I think the reason why was because it was what people secretly want.
Totally. And also I think that for someone like Ozzy, he comes from Birmingham, which is where I grew up in the UK. And so there's a huge tribute to him since he passed in the city. But I think also like when I was looking at the local press when I was home, because I was home when it happened, and it was all about the working class hero who had like made it. And on one hand, they're like thrilled that someone's made it out or whatever, or like and then on the other side, it's like that there's then the accountability of like, have you made it out in the right way? And have you forgotten where you've come from? And all of that stuff. And I just think that is such a like complicated path to travel and navigate. Like you have to sort of remember where you've come from and show that in a certain way to people in the way they understand it, but then also they like that you're different. I don't know, it's hard.
You have to sort of spend your life apologizing for your success.
You
know, or normalizing yourself so much that people don't feel too separate or too far away from you. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it really is. One other part that I thought was really interesting that you sort of, I feel like you don't hear as much these days people saying is that when Nicole was talking about the person who murdered her mother, she said, we all have choices. To blame what happened on a childhood or on mental illness is to deny those choices, which I thought was quite interesting because I feel like, we, in other scenarios, her parents talk a lot about, to her, when someone does something hurtful, they'll be like, where are their parents kind of thing. And there's this tension between individual responsibility and the sort of structures of society, whether that's like in your immediate family or the global world, that how they can shape your life. And I don't know, I thought that part was interesting.
No, it's interesting. It's like, what is the personal responsibility for one's choices? And I could rack my brain about thinking about the person that took my father's life, but it doesn't bring him back.
No.
And everyone has their own way about digesting that information or processing it.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's not about the why.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that does anything for me. And also trying our best to have empathy.
Yes.
To have grace. And that for me is what I got out of that, out of her book and out of her, you know, her meditation on her mother and what she wanted to, how she wanted to proceed in her life.
I also thought she was so like brilliantly honest and about growing up in a house where there were lots of artists coming and going, and the sort of benefits of that and the joys of that. Because I was always so envious of people who'd grown up, because I didn't grow up in an environment like that. Like my dad was a teacher, my mom was a carer. Like, so when I arrived in like London and then New York and meeting creative people, I'd just never been around them. And so, but I thought she handled it with such grace of like, not like apologizing. She's like, just like the home she grew up in, but owning it and just, I don't know, I thought it was lovely.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I love those kind of stories. She did a beautiful documentary about her father as well, so the Black Godfather, and it's fantastic. It's on Netflix, Clarence Avant. And, you know, she had these two phenomenal parents that I think gave her different things. And she embodied, her and her brother, like they embody these ideals that their parents passed down. And I think that to me is just really beautiful. And she knows that just because she had these great parents doesn't mean that she's always going to get things right.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that to me was really well said.
Do you live in the type of house that always has people coming and going, creatives and stuff, or are you more like, this is my sanctuary?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think it's very much a sanctuary. We're very thoughtful about who comes to the house, but a lot of my friends are creatives. They also sometimes make art in different ways. And I think, but also not every single person, it works in the industry or it works in the business, but if I'm inspired by the person, doesn't necessarily mean they have to make art. They could just inspire me by who they are. And I think that is what is a really beautiful balance in my life. But I'm around a lot of people, a lot of my peers and people like Issa, who I love. And I think that there's a relatability, there's an understanding when you're around other folks that do what you do. But I also find a lot of joy and comfort in being around people that aren't in the business too.
Totally. Yeah. I feel exactly the same, but I am quite protective of my home. Like, don't love having, I mean, I like having like friends over and stuff, but I would struggle with having the type of home that's like a public, like entertaining space, like some people do, you know, they have like rooms where they're always hosting or something. I'm like,
Yeah, I know. Yes, it's true, because then it's like, I like a hosting moment, but not too many people.
Right.
Because I like to focus. I like to have like 2 people, maybe 3 is like almost too much. Like I got to lock in with the conversation.
Yes.
And also when you have too many people, like what happens when it's time to go? Like how do you navigate that?
Exactly.
And the music people, which is a lot, who Nicole Avant was around a lot of musicians, they don't sleep. They're like
nocturnal
night owls. They just are always going. And so that I don't quite understand.
No. Also, I live in New York in like 2 rooms. So it'd be like, welcome, my bed is 3 feet away.
But still in New York, I mean, you can still have a great time. You can be up till 4 in the morning.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your third book, let's move on to, well, actually one of the themes that we haven't spoken about, which I thought was interesting in this book, but which comes up in Sky Full of Elephants by Cebo Campbell as well, which was amazing, is this idea of the divine feminine, which I thought was so interesting. Because I think when I was younger, because I definitely grew up being like, I'm a feminist. And so there were certain elements of like femininity that I sort of wanted to push away, because I thought that being a feminist meant that I couldn't be feminine almost. Like, but I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Wow, no, yeah, the divine feminine for sure is really interesting. And I was also trying to figure it out. I was like, there's some themes going on here, particularly with I think This Is Your Mother, and I think you'll be happy. It is about the divine feminine, but particular in terms of mothering and how one mothers a daughter in particular. And so I definitely thought about that on the way here. I was like, oh, those 2 books are, you know, it is about the mother-daughter journey, which I am also fascinated by as well. And then in Cebo's novel, that is the sort of the divine mother, where you don't have to necessarily having to have given birth to someone to be maternal, to guide. And in particular, there's a mother that has passed away. The protagonist has lost her mother as well, That's an interesting thing. You know, this is your mother. Obviously, you know, Think You'll Be Happy in Sky Full of Elephants. It is about grieving a mother.
Yeah.
But appreciating what she gave you while she was still here.
Totally.
And yeah, 2 being memoir and 1 being, you know, fiction is very interesting. And they both kind of give you a similar feeling about what happens when the vessel that brought you to the world is no longer here.
Yeah. And I feel like in Sky Full of Elephants, Sydney is really wrestling with like the shortcomings of her mother as well, and the things that she didn't tell her, and the world that the sort of like strange insulated world that she brought her up in and everything. It's a real reckoning.
And it's dealing with race. I mean, it's a white mother raising a child whose father is Black, and the things that she isn't able to expose her to or doesn't want to because of the circumstances surrounding her how she was conceived, and it's a very complicated relationship that we don't really get to witness in the book, because at that point her mother has since passed, although we get a sense of who her mother was for a brief moment. But I think Cebo does a really beautiful job of sort of honoring the mother, but also making sure we have some sort of understanding and empathy and grace for her as well.
Totally. It's such a beautiful book. And, you know, I thought there were so many moments where, you know, he's allowing you to see it from so many different perspectives.
Absolutely. Talk about 360. I mean, Cebo is really great at that, and that you cannot judge, root for, be against anyone in the book. And I think that is a beautiful thing when a writer really can do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many bits that I wrote down.
Yeah,
but, I love the when Zoo says that's all family has a space to be odd. I thought that was really beautiful, because that is the truth, isn't it? There's no one, you can be quite like odd like with them, with your family.
I know, yeah. And you know, a family has many definitions.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't always, to me, it doesn't mean blood. I think people get very stuck on that. And I think for me, family are really the people that show up, and the people that allow you to be odd and allow you to be yourself, and don't judge you for it.
Yeah. There's also a lot of reckoning in this book with anger. And like, I think at one point, one of the characters says like, anger's a vital part of the human experience. And then fully understanding, you know, without fully understanding it, you'll never understand yourself. Have you ever had to deal with anger in a...
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I think with anger and frustration, I think for me, I try to go to the source of it, you know, the why.
Yes, yeah.
Versus leaning into it or feeding into it, because anger really is a sort of hurt transformed, or frustration, I think. And so I think I'm always trying to figure out, if I am angry, why am I?
Yeah.
And I think that's what the book also does a really beautiful job of trying to understanding where the source of anger comes from, and then sort of facing that and staring that in the face, rather than sort of succumbing to it.
Totally. And also just it captures so beautifully the way that everyone's trying to manage their own needs while also the needs of the community. And I think like when Sydney and her father arrive in Mobile and they are going through that, they almost call it like rehabilitation process, don't they? When they goes off to have his like bar. And I just thought it was so beautiful, like holding space for people who maybe aren't where you are right now, but are going to hope will get there. I don't know.
I thought, I mean, the book can be very whimsical in moments, but also very grounded in a sort of form of reality as well. And I think it's also imagining a future that isn't real, but feels very sort of true. Yeah. To something, to our experiences, but he is imagining a very unique world, which is very much a reckoning, I think.
Totally. And but where it goes like, they've gone and you've got no excuses for who you can be, so who are you going to be?
Exactly. Woo! Right. And that anybody can look at and be confronted. Yeah. And I think, and also it's just the way I think about things. He just articulated it in a beautiful, poetic way in the book, is that who are you when all the excuses are gone? Yes. And I think people spend their lives holding on to excuses. Yeah. And looking for reasons to not do something. Yeah. Those are comfort blankets for people.
And then there's all those malicious people who are trying to take advantage of those who are feeling like unsure after when the event happens, and some people are almost trying to go back to how things were, and then those people that are trying to encourage the walkers. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, seeing that world of like, was like a Starbucks or just other different things, and like, how do you get back to what things used to be? But it's so fascinating because the past is gone.
Yes.
It doesn't like, but there are people that want to go back to the past, and it's an interesting way to live. It's going against nature.
Totally, because I mean, some of the characters, I can't remember which one, says to Sydney when she's like, I just want to go back, and they were like, can you not understand, we weren't free, like that was not like, you think of that as when you were free, but for the rest of us that was like the complete opposite.
Exactly. It's like, go back to where? Go back to bondage.
Like, exactly. Like it was really beautiful. How do you think, so the ending is sort of ambiguous, right? It ends with Sydney's father like turning the machine sort of like back on, and she's like gone into Texas and is going through do you think she comes back to him?
I think what endings like that, it lends itself to whatever the reader decides.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was a beautiful way to end the book. And I think it sort of just left my imagination swirling and wondering what is the world now?
Yeah.
And we've moved into a new space. What I love about, I think the best endings are the ones that feel like a new beginning.
Yes.
And that is exactly how the end of his book feels.
Yeah.
And that new beginning can look many different ways. And I think it's really up to the reader's, discretion.
Yeah, because she's sort of like in the water. I suppose it is like a kind of rebirth, almost like a baptism of like a new life. It's really special.
Yeah.
I read that Lawrence Fishburne is adapting this, but do you ever read books, fiction, with the goal of adapting?
Nah, never with the goal in mind. No, when I'm reading a book, I think I just want to be lost in it.
Yeah.
And if, and more often than not, if I'm reading something like This Is Your Mother, I knew Jeremy was already doing that. I think Cebo might have mentioned that he was already working with somebody. So I just kind of get to read it and enjoy it. And maybe I am imagining what it might look like, or what it might feel like, or what it could be. And that's a tricky thing. And I love when books do become movies or TV shows, whatever makes sense. But for me, I do like my imagination doing with it whatever it will, and then when it does hit the screen, big or small, then you're seeing someone else's imagination come to life. So it's gonna be bittersweet.
Do you ever fictionally cast things then in your head when you're like imagining them, or not really?
No, I don't really see actors when I read. I think I just sort of, it's interesting. I go off of what the description is, and then in my brain just sort of does something with that.
That's so, because Issa said the same thing. She said she sees an essence, because I definitely see character. I imagine like actresses or whatever. I know it's so weird.
No,
I feel like it's a lack of imagination on my part.
No, not at all. I think your brain is doing something really cool. I think mine is sort of seeing blobs a little bit. I'm not able to think of an actor. It's too much like work.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's because it's not like work for me. It's sort of like a big novelty of like fictionally. When I had Gillian Anderson, I was like, it's so amazing. You actually get to cast them. She was like, it's not that easy. I was like, I believe that too.
That is true.
It's very true. Well, your fourth book is Yes, I Can, the story of Sammy Davis Jr., which is an incredible story. Tell me about your love of this book.
Oh, well, I think it really began with my love of Sammy Davis Jr. Yeah. I was really honored to be able to write a biopic, and that was actually based on the book that his daughter wrote, Tracy. And look, I think this book is really cool, though. I wanted to highlight because he was speaking to someone and working with someone on this one. So again, just memoir. I think I really wanted to speak to that more so versus Tracy. But that's an interesting thing, his daughter writing about him, which was very helpful because when she was still Earthside, she, had given us the rights to her book and things like that. But this book really moved because you have to read this book as well. You can't, you have to read all the books. But Sammy was a child prodigy and came up in a time where Black people were seen, and still in our society continue to be seen as less than.
Yes. And
because he was so extraordinary, he really shifted culture and society because people couldn't just look at him. It's sort of like, is he just some sort of fluke? Is he some freak of nature? He also was half Puerto Rican, half Black, and he was brown skinned, was very short, got his nose broken in the army, lost his eye in a car accident, and still came back. And I think the world threw a lot at him, and he only sort of gave love back to any and everyone. And he dealt with so much and carried so much for the Black community, for the industry, for himself, even when it came to who he fell in love with. It was not a popular thing for a Black man to be dating a white woman. Still, you know, that is something that is very fraught, and people are still having those conversations. And Sammy was someone, you know, who was on the cover of magazines with, you know, his white wife, and you know, he wasn't afraid to say that love is not political.
Yes.
Love is, you know, guttural. It is spiritual. And that was a big deal for him to do that at that time. And I think for me, I find it to be very admirable that he wasn't afraid of what someone would think. It still affected him. He's still a human being. And there were definitely people in the Black community at the time who thought he wasn't proud of his Blackness and he didn't embrace who he was. And for him, it was very frustrating because that was not true. It was not a fact. And I think he was someone who really lived by a code, which was to do your best, to be a good person, and to show up. And I think for him, for people to think that he was anything less than a good person really bothered him. And there's still never been a movie made about his life. Luckily, Coleman Domingo is going to be doing something, which I'm really excited to see. I'm in the process of adapting my biopic into a stage play with music. And so I'm working on that. I'm trying to make it a little bit more sort of whimsical right now. And so it feels really different. But it's important for me to tell his story because it is one that we think we know, but his impact is one that continues to have a ripple effect. You don't have Usher, you don't have Michael Jackson, you don't have, Eddie Murphy, like half of these people that we love and we know, they would not exist in the way they do if Sammy Davis Jr. did not exist in the way in which he did.
Yeah. This book is sort of, I think, out of print, but they're reissuing it in December.
Yes.
And which is really exciting. And Questlove has written the intro. And
of course he has. I love Quest.
And he talks about how Sammy Davis Jr. is the first time that he sort of heard the term like code switching used in terms of him having to sort of alternate between these different communities, like in the Rat Pack where he was the only Black member, and within, you know, his own community. And I think it's such an interest. I just think it's brilliant that it's going to be republished and out there for people to discover.
I think it's really important, and I hope people do pick up the book and spend some time with this story and with this man, because I think the most beautiful thing about him is that he really just gave love, you know, and loved what he did and was so great at it. And he deserves to be honored, and he was honored before he passed. I'm really grateful that there was this beautiful special that you can go see on YouTube. It was a sort of a honoring his 60 years in the business, but people knew that his time was sort of fast approaching, and he was ill and he was very frail. And the likes of Whitney Houston, Diane Carroll, Muhammad Ali, Eddie Murphy hosts, Frank Sinatra performed. The list goes on and on. Ella Fitzgerald, Quincy Jones is there. It's Debbie Allen performs. All of these amazing human beings come out and show gratitude for this person who gave of himself and sacrificed so much to entertain the world and to break barriers and to be a first. And that comes at a cost. Yeah. And so I'm grateful that he paid that price, because we needed him and we still need his energy now. And I want to do my best to keep his legacy alive.
Yeah. I also think it's a really lovely story. As you know, I haven't completely finished it yet, but the stuff about with his father, like when his parents divorced when he's 3 and his dad takes him on the road with him because he's like, I don't want to be separated from my kid.
Absolutely. Sammy Davis Sr., who, was the first and really taught Sammy Davis Jr. everything he knew about performing, and Willie Masson and the original Mr. Bojangles, they sort of were his teachers and his mentors, and he's a young kid, at the time, and working, singing for his supper, and literally there's footage of him as a young kid performing, singing, dancing, and he just was born to entertain. He was Mr. Entertainment. And for Frank Sinatra to see him and to put his arm around him and to really be friends with him, and to push him out there is also something that you didn't see very often. And I'm just really grateful to everyone that embraced him and lifted him up and was there for him during that entire run, because it was a lot. And he was also at the March on Washington, and he was friends with Diane Carroll, and he would flirt with Eartha Kitt and all these things. He just had such a full life, and I think I look up to him in that way as well. I don't stay up as late, I'll be honest, but I definitely feel myself wanting to carry on that legacy. And when you walk into a space, some days you may be, he was always animated and always up. And there's certain times I'm exhausted and don't feel like entertaining everybody. But Sammy never was boring when he walked into a room, and he was always entertaining. And I love that he said in the documentary, the PBS documentary, which I also highly recommend people to check out, he says, I wasn't born to be the boy next door. And he definitely wasn't. He was, it doesn't matter what time I would have been born in, I would have been glamorous and, extravagant and all those things. And I'm grateful that he lived the way he did. And he was always just like immaculately dressed and pressed. And there was a cigarette in one hand, a cocktail in the other. And, the glasses and the hair, he was old fashioned in every sense of the word.
And lived, and I was sort of so committed to forming his own opinions about things, and
Absolutely.
I was surprised when I saw about the Nixon stuff, and it was just his opinion or whatever, and he had a relationship with him.
And I think there's also the level of understanding his journey to the infamous photo where he's hugging Nixon from behind, but he initially campaigned for JFK, was disinvited from the inauguration because he was actually still engaged at the time to My Brit, and that was illegal for people of different races to get married. And so for whatever reason, he was disinvited from the inauguration after campaigning to help get the Black vote, and he had to be disinvited. And I think there was maybe a feeling of hurt and betrayal. And then for President Nixon to come along and invite him to stay at the White House,
in the Lincoln bedroom.
Yes, correct. And to be, I think, one of the first Black people to ever be allowed to do such a thing. And so I think Sammy felt a sort of maybe a wound sort of being healed in that moment. And there was a lot of gratitude that he had for a sitting president to welcome them into the White House. And for Sammy, performing on the Chitlin circuit and being treated the way he had been treated his whole life. He even says, I think his dad said, this is as far uptown as you ever gonna get. And so for him, he accepted that. I don't think it was him selling out or anything like that, or even if he believed in the things that the president at the time was doing. I think for Sammy, it was sort of a full circle moment of being disinvited to an inauguration to being invited into the White House. And I think that had a lot to do with that hug that he gives more than it did his political views at the time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And when he was performing in Vegas with the Rat Pack, they talk about how he had to stay at different hotels.
Absolutely.
And they made him go out through the service entrance. Yes. And so you can imagine if someone invited you to stay at the White House, you'd be like...
You're probably going to say yes and say thank you.
You mentioned his sort of charisma and always showing up and being sort of on. And when I taped an episode with Mindy Kaling last week, she talked about the pressure of being the sort of person who, and she said that Steve Carell on The Office would show up every day and be on, because he was the center of the comedy and the center of the show. Do you ever grapple with or struggle with that?
I don't struggle with it. I don't feel as if I am here to perform.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. But there's sometimes people may have an expectation if you're walking into the room, hey, what's up? Everybody's name. It depends on my mood that day.
Yeah.
If I'm up for it, maybe. If I'm not, that's also my prerogative. But I do think there is this expectation, whether if you're a person who they deem funny or if they think you're entertaining or you're a movie star. And some people give into it. Some people will be exhausted and drained and will still give their last bit of energy to someone they don't know, so that way they can maintain a sort of reputation of being nice or being kind. Look, I do not subscribe to that. Even when I go into the hair and makeup trailer for certain things, it's early morning. First of all, it's early. Second of all, I got to go to set and then perform. So I don't want to, be depleted when I walk out of hair and makeup. So I'm always grateful to those folks that allow me to continue to wake up, to continue to center myself. And I am trying to preserve my voice, trying to preserve my energy. And I have a right to be quiet into myself.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean I'm cold or mean, but if that's how someone perceives it, they have a right to do that. I would never argue with anyone. But also if I'm not in the mood, if I'm having a bad day, I mean, it's so crazy how a person who is a public figure isn't allowed to be a person.
I know.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, and I feel that for people like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, it's like anytime they get out of a car, if they don't like smile at someone looking at them in the right way, it'll be like, they're a bitch.
And it's like, you know what? The way I look at it is like the let them theory. Let them believe that, you have a right to that opinion. I'm not going to argue with you.
Are you a fan of that book? The Mel Robbins one? I haven't read it. I need to read it.
The let them theory, it'll change your life. You just let everybody do what they're going to do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you ever have to fight yourself from being like trying to steer people, or are you just pretty good at being like,
look, I think everything's a struggle, but I think to me, it's sort of a new version of saying live and let live.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like if someone wants to do this, someone wants to do that. If someone wants to believe this, someone wants to believe that. I think things get complicated if what you believe affects other people in a negative way, or you're actively doing something to hurt another group of people. That's different. But if a person is like, you know what, I want to drive an electric car and I'm a person that likes gas cars, we're going to agree to disagree. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how your life is not affecting. But then somebody say, well, it's affecting the environment, da, 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 da. But at the end of the day, everybody is right. Everybody believes that they're right about something. And so I don't want to spend my day trying to convince someone to think about life in the way that I do.
Yeah.
Because now we can have an exchange about our ideas and why we believe things and why we think the way we do.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to try to make someone live the way I do because it works for me. If that doesn't work for you, that is completely fair. And I think if we sort of allow people to, believe what they want to believe, I think it's more about asking them, why do you believe that? And can you hear why I believe what I believe? And can we take something away from that conversation?
Yeah. Gosh, that's so evolved. Are you a therapy person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them. Yeah.
Do you like alternate between different?
Well, no, I mean, I really, they serve different purposes, but I think that comes with it. I'm also 41. At some point, you got to evolve and you have to really grow up and also realize that everybody's not going to agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's what Gwyneth Paltrow said about turning 40. She said you get a software upgrade.
Yeah.
Where you just
should be. Yeah. And also not trying to be what I used to be and, giving up patterns that don't serve me. But I think that's the biggest thing is really letting people, it's like live and let live.
Yeah. What are you working on at the moment?
What am I working on right now? I'm working on season 8 of The Chi, which will be our final season.
Final season, I know.
I know. We're going to try to stick the landing best we can. I'm working on this movie for myself and Issa.
Oh, great.
Writing something for us, which is a really cool idea about us being friends and having a bit of a friendship breakup. And it's really funny and silly. I was supposed to be writing beats for her, but I ultimately just started writing the script. So I may just send that to her at some point because it was like trying to write the beats was getting to be too difficult. And so I just started working on the script. And
will you both star in it together?
Yeah, we want to. So this is definitely an exclusive. I know Issa's gonna be like, oh shit, well now we got to do it. But yeah, I think it's something that I think people hopefully will enjoy.
They definitely will.
And but it's just been fun working on it. And also she and I zooming and talking and figuring out how it could be. And right now I'm being lazy. The characters' names are Lena and Issa. I'm not even being that imaginative about it. Thinly veiled versions of ourselves. And then there's some adaptation I'm doing. There's a short story. It's looking like we want to turn into a feature written by this amazing writer. And so, yeah, just and also a play. I wrote a play.
Wow.
Yeah, called Trinity. It'll be up at Baltimore Center Stage, February 12th through March 8th. So hope to see everybody there.
Yeah.
And I'm producing plays. There's a play I'm producing called The Peculiar Patriot, which is also at Baltimore Center Stage. It opens up the 17th of this month of October. It'll be there until November. There's also another play I'm producing called Heaux Church, spelled Heaux. Church at Ars Nova, which is open right now. It'll be open through November as well. So I'm really leaning into the theater space, the feature space, and I'm not going away from TV completely. We'll see if we can get something else going, but it's a really creative and exciting time.
That's a lot of plates in the air.
Yeah.
How do you juggle the priorities?
Oh, I just really make sure, I make time for things one at a time.
Okay.
I can't do things all at once. It's like, okay, today I'm focused on the Me and Issa movie. Today I'm focused on the play. Today I'm focused on every day I'm working on The Chi. But yeah, I sort of divide my time so I can hone in on the very thing I'm looking at.
How do you feel about the ending of The Shy? It must just feel like it's an incredible achievement.
Thank you.
It's such a huge show.
I think, to do 8 seasons is such a triumph. And it's really just been such a wonderful collaboration. I've worked with so many actors, so many crew. Like our crew is amazing, filming it in the city in which I'm from, Chicago, which is unlike any city in the world. I think it's a really special city, a city that's very grounded in community and really love. I think there's definitely, people know about the violence and they know about the mob, but we're a city of communities and families, and there's a lot of music and love and culture there. And I'm really grateful to be from Chicago. Bittersweet is one that definitely comes to mind because it's sad to say goodbye, but it's good to do that as well. It's good. Endings are important, and you want to end things in a way that feels worthy of the beginning. And so I'm grateful for this journey. And for me, it's really been a decade because it was 2 years prior to getting on the air. We shot a pilot that we had to reshoot, had a mini room. So for a lot of people, 8 seasons could have went 10. I'm like, but I technically went 10. You just didn't see those 2 years before we got up. But so a decade of working on this show has been a game changer, and I'm looking for new mountains to climb now.
Oh, that's so exciting. And are you going to do another season of Legacy Talk?
Yes, we definitely do. Our season finale actually airs today. It probably went up while I was sitting here talking to you. Legacy Talk with Lena Waithe, which you can find on YouTube.
So
and
good.
All the places that you listen to podcasts. But our season finale is with Phylicia Rashad.
Oh, wow.
The Phylicia Rashad. And it was a wonderful conversation. I'm so excited for everybody to see it. And season 3, there's been some interest. There have been some people that have sort of raised their hand to see if we need some help and some support. So we're in conversations right now. If none of those conversations really land, we're still going to do it. I've been funding the show myself. And it's been an investment that I think is worthy of the people that I get a chance to sit down with, and really everybody that watches, anybody that tunes in and gets something from it. Every penny we spend on the show is worth it because this is a priceless archive, and if somebody else wants to come in and help us out, we're open to the partnership. But if it doesn't make sense, I'll continue to dig into my pockets and make sure that the show feels worthy of the audience that shows up for it, because I'm really grateful to every single person that watches something like Legacy Talk or The Shy or 20s or Boomerang or Queen of Some, anything I've ever done, because they don't have to do it. Their time is precious and it's valuable. And so when people spend their time with something I've made, I am forever grateful, and I can't say thank you enough.
I can't wait to watch the episode with Phylicia Rashad. I saw her in a play on Broadway maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the moment it wasn't like a musical, it was a sort of pretty like serious play, and the moment she walked out, just the audience like erupted into cheers, and then like everyone sat down in their seat.
I know,
it was
you're in the presence of royalty.
Truly. But she does, like, when even on the stage, like she just the way she moved, like exceptional. Yeah,
and I'm really grateful that I got to just honor her and everyone that we honored this season and last. It's really about gratitude and thanking them for their contributions, for their sacrifices, and for their willingness to lean into their purpose, so that way others could be inspired by it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lena. This was such a wonderful conversation. I'm very grateful.
I'm grateful to you. You're my Shiro. The fact that you got through these books and we could have this amazing conversation. There's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot of conversations happening, but to be sitting with you and to talk about these people's work and this literature and these words, it means a lot. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here.